You've been lied to about the American Revolution. They told you it was about tea. They told you it was about tax. But that wasn't the real spark. No, the match that lit the flame of the revolution was money, and more specifically, who controlled it. In the mid-1700s, the American colonies were booming. Agriculture was thriving. Local industries were gaining traction, and trade was expanding. But there was a major problem. The colonies didn't have enough gold or silver to sustain economic activity. So the colonists did something radical. They printed their own currency. They called it colonials. These weren't backed by gold, but by trust and productivity. Fiat currency created for internal commerce. It worked. Commerce flourished, people had liquidity, local economies grew. But that success, independent, thriving, and outside of London's control, threatened the British Empire and its central bank. The Bank of England saw this colonial money as competition. The British Parliament, influenced by powerful banking interests, petitioned King George to ban colonial currency. And in 1764, the king complied, issuing the Currency Act, which made it illegal for colonies to print their own money. This effect was catastrophic. Commerce crashed, farmers couldn't sell goods, homelessness surged, poverty spread like wildfire. Benjamin Franklin later wrote, "The inability of the colonists to get power to issue their own money permanently out of the hands of King George III and the international bankers was the prime reason for the Revolutionary War." He even said, "If we had continued to issue our own money, we would have been better able to tolerate the tea tax and other such taxes." Let that sink in. We might have tolerated tyranny if we were allowed to keep our money. This wasn't just taxation without representation. It was economic sabotage by foreign bankers using the crown as their muscle. And so, the colonists rebelled, not just against the king, but against the money masters behind the throne. But this battle wasn't won with independence. It was just round one in a centuries-long war over who controls the money, and therefore, the people. The colonies won the war. The redcoats were sent packing. The flag was raised. But behind the scenes, the financial war raged on. And this time, the battle was internal. After the Revolution, America was governed under the Articles of Confederation. It was a loose alliance of states with no central power to coin money or levy taxes. This wasn't a flaw. It was by design. The founders feared centralized power. They just fought a bloody war to get away from it. But then came the debt. The Crown Bank of England and the French banking houses demanded repayment for wartime loans. America, still bleeding from the battle, couldn't pay. Bankruptcy loomed. That's when the Constitutional Convention was called in 1787. Not to rewrite the nation, but to supposedly just fix a few issues. The ability to tax and coin money. But that convention did far more than just tweak policy. It centralized power. And behind the scenes was Alexander Hamilton, the man who would reintroduce the very thing the Revolution tried to end, a central bank. Hamilton was the founding agent of international finance in America. He proposed the first Bank of the United States in 1791, modeled after the Bank of England. It was a private institution with public powers, meaning it could control the nation's money supply and lend money to the government, creating debt and dependency from day one. Thomas Jefferson opposed it bitterly. So did James Madison. They warned it would create a moneyed aristocracy and give foreign interests a backdoor into American politics. But Washington, manipulated by Hamilton, signed it into law. We were free politically, but financially enslaved again. This time by a central bank with a deep foreign ties. But the American people didn't forget. And when the 20-year charter came up for renewal in 1811, Congress rejected it. The people had had enough of foreign-backed financial control. The act of defiance triggered swift retaliation. In 1812, just a year later, Britain declared war on the United States. The pretext was maritime rights, but the deeper motive was clear: punish America for rejecting the first bank. The British even burned down Washington, D.C., an act of symbolic domination. Most Americans today think the War of 1812 was just a sideshow, but it was a bankers' war, a direct consequence of breaking financial chains. And we paid dearly for it too. If there was ever a true American hero in the war against financial tyranny, it was Andrew Jackson. He wasn't just a war hero from 1812. He was the only president to actually end the central bank. And for that, they made him a target for life. In 1832, Congress tried to renew the charter for the Second Bank of the United States, the new version of the same old game. Jackson vetoed it. Not quietly either. He declared war on the bankers in a way no president has since or before. He called them a den of vipers and thieves, and warned that if the American people allowed private banks to control issuance of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property. So you'll own nothing and be happy. That was almost 200 years ago. And he described exactly what we're living through today. The bankers retaliated. They restricted lending, crashed the economy, and tried to create panic. But Jackson didn't back down. Instead, he forged an alliance with small business owners and local banks. He paid off the national debt, the only time in U.S. history it has ever been done. He rerouted Treasury funds into state banks, bypassing the cartel. By removing gold from the central bank, he effectively ended the central bank's power to force Congress to renew its charter. He stripped it of the leverage it had over lawmakers. Jackson understood what few leaders have. Money is power, and whoever controls the currency controls the nation. But power like that doesn't go down without a plan for revenge. After Jackson passed away, the banking elite regrouped. They would wait patiently, quietly, for their moment to re-establish control. That moment would come later, first in the 1870s, then in 1913, and again in 2008. But for a brief moment in American history, from the 1830s to the early 1900s, we were actually free. Free from central banking, free from debt slavery, free to pursue prosperity without foreign intervention. And those years, they were some of the most prosperous, innovative, and entrepreneurial in American history. But it didn't last. The Civil War was never just about slavery. That's the surface story, the one they feed you in school to keep you from looking deeper. In truth, it was a banker's war, engineered from the shadows by the same elite money interests that have been trying to reassert control over America since 1776. Let's break it down. In the decades before the war, America was split between two economic visions. The North favored tariffs and industrial protectionism, shielding its developing manufacturing base from cheap foreign imports, kind of like China. The South depended on free trade, exporting cotton to Europe and importing finished goods. This trade dispute was not just a domestic issue, it was weaponized by international banking syndicates to divide the nation. The conflict created an ideal pretext for intervention, destabilization, and an eventual takeover. Then came another pressure point. Napoleon III, son of the original Napoleon, who stationed French troops just across the southern border in Mexico. Why? Because the European powers had been watching closely, ready to step up and step in if America fell into chaos. Everything was being staged like a chessboard. The real goal wasn't victory or unity, it was debt, dependency, and centralization. Then came Abraham Lincoln, a president who did the unthinkable. Instead of borrowing from foreign bankers at predatory interest rates to finance the war, he issued debt-free greenbacks, a sovereign currency backed by the federal government. It was a direct threat to the international central banking cartel. Lincoln even said, the government should create, issue, and circulate all the currency and credit needed to satisfy the spending power of the government and the buying power of the consumers. He was even trying to liberate America from the grit of foreign debt, just like Andrew Jackson had before him. And for that, Lincoln had to go. According to persistent theories and historical patterns, John Wilkes Booth wasn't just a rogue actor. He was a hired gun for banking elites. His assassination of Lincoln wasn't just revenge, it was an opening. After Lincoln's assassination, the banker compromised Congress wasted no time. They used the crisis to push through the 1871 District of Columbia Act, transforming the U.S. government into a corporate entity. The official justification was post-war debt management. The reality, a backdoor for the banks to finally seize control. Just like Hamilton had manipulated Washington, the same kinds of agents whispered into the ears of post-war politicians. With Lincoln gone, there was no one left to stop them. The result was catastrophic. The United States, capital letters, which is a legal fiction, was created as a corporate entity headquartered in Washington, D.C. The Republic of Sovereign States was overlaid with a federal corporate structure. And in this new structure, bankers wrote the rules. By the 1880s, the Supreme Court had given U.S. corporate personhood, falsely claimed in the Santa Clara case. Suddenly, corporations had more rights than citizens. And no soul, no loyalty, no expiration date. To make matters worse, the charter's purpose of corporations was inverted. Originally, they existed only with a time limit and for a specific benefit of the public. After reorganization, the corporate purpose became profit above all else, even if that meant destroying communities, rigging laws, or exporting jobs. This was the real outcome of the Civil War, not just the abolition of slavery, but the rise of a new kind of slavery, financial and invisible. Not just a reunited America, but an America owned by unseen hands. Not just a bullet in Ford's theater, but the opening salvo to a new banker war. The founders fought to escape the crown's monetary tyranny. Jackson fought to end the bank. Lincoln tried to restore sovereignty with greenbacks. But after 1871, the United States ceased to be what the Revolution fought for. The flag still waved, the speeches still promised liberty, but the structure had been hollowed out. What replaced it was a legal fiction, a global corporation, dressed up like a country. And the final stage of that system is being built right now. In digital code, AI algorithms, and financial chains so subtle most people won't see them until it's too late. The plan that started in 1776 isn't over. It just changed form. What began as a battle against the gold monopoly of the crown became a war against debt slavery under central banking, then morphed again into corporate autocracy of post-Civil War America. But today, it's entering its final form: digital control, algorithmic enslavement, and total centralization. And the average person has no idea it's happening. Catherine Austin Fitts, she saw it coming. According to former HUD Assistant Secretary and financial whistleblower Catherine Austin Fitts, the global elite are building a control grid, not just to track your money, but to control every decision you make. The new system isn't about printing money, it's about removing your choices. She said it best: "We've been trained to prefer comfort over the natural miseries of life. The financial system is used to control us subtly, lulling us into giving up our freedom voluntarily." That's the real enemy, not inflation, not just corporation, complacency. The linchpin of this new control system is the central bank digital currency. It's not just digital dollars, it's a programmable wallet run by central banks where your money can expire, it can be denied for purchases they don't approve of, it can be tracked, frozen, taxed, or redirected in real time. That's not currency, that's digital rationing. And it's not coming, it's already here in a pilot form. In the US, it's being quietly tested under names like FedNow and regulated liability networks. In China, it's already full scale. In Europe, it's being normalized under climate responsibility and anti-terror rhetoric. One of the most dangerous tactics being used against us isn't force, though. It's conditioning. What we're experiencing right now is choice training, a psychological technique used in animal training, behavior modification, and even interrogation programs. It works by gradually limiting your available options while rewarding compliance until your behavior aligns with the trainer's goals without ever realizing you've been trained. This isn't fringe theory, it's standard behavioral science. In animal training, it's used to guide behavior with positive reinforcement, offering fewer and fewer acceptable choices until the subject obeys by default. In social engineering, it's how platforms like Facebook and TikTok nudge you towards what they want you to see. In modern finance, it's how digital systems are being designed to gradually eliminate dissenting behavior without ever needing a cop at your front door. Here's how it works in the context of central banking and CBDCs. First, they offer convenience, tap to pay, cashless services, free stimulus. Then they remove alternatives, less cash, bank branch closures, penalties for non-digital payments. Finally, they start conditioning behavior. The CBDCs only work for approved purchases, climate, rationing limits, meat, or gas. Social credit scores affect spending. Before long, the people think it's their own decision to stop protesting, grow less food, or move into cities. In reality, they've been trained. You're not free if your only choices are the ones your masters approve. This is how comfort becomes captivity. This is why homesteading is revolutionary. It's not just about chickens and gardens. It's about breaking the choice training loop. It's about creating real alternatives, ones that aren't subject to approval by financial AI or a corporate algorithm. But it's not just about digital money. To make this control system airtight, they're collapsing the rural economy. Supply chains are being artificially throttled. Small farms are being bought up, overregulated, or taxed out of existence. Rural hospitals, banks, and schools are closing. AI systems are being deployed to monitor everything from financial behavior to crop data. This isn't about efficiency, it's about herding. If you control the food, the money, and the movement, you don't need to pass laws. People will obey out of necessity. Fitz calls it the going direct reset, a term coined by central bankers in Jackson Hole. It's a move from a financial system based on lending and interest rates to one based upon direct central control of individuals. And that's where you come in, the homesteader. In 1776, resistance meant picking up a musket. Today, resistance means growing your own food, bartering with neighbors, and pulling your life out of their system. One skill, 1 acre, one decision at a time. The modern homesteader is the new Minuteman. You don't answer to the Fed, you don't ask permission from BlackRock, and you don't wait for Congress to wake up. You build sovereignty from the soil up, because no matter how digital their chains are, a chicken doesn't need Wi-Fi, and tomatoes don't log on to Amazon. This isn't just a conspiracy, it's continuity. The same power that tried to crush colonial script, assassinated Lincoln over greenbacks, and rewrote America as a corporation is now writing code to control your life. CBDCs are the new redcoats. AI is the new musket, and your home is the new conquered bridge. If you're not resisting, you're submitting. And if you're not homesteading, you're not ready for what's coming on up. So join me tomorrow, Rebels, for the next installment of this 5-video series on Great Depression 2025. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.